3 weeks ago, I discovered that my closest friendship of 6 years had been built on deception, and I honestly don't know how to keep going day to day anymore. I swing wildly between wanting to yell at the top of my lungs and wanting to stay curled up in bed without moving an inch. And yes, before anyone wonders, I'm completely certain about what took place. I have undeniable evidence now, but I'm jumping ahead. I have to start from the very beginning because the background is crucial, and I need people to grasp why this cuts so deeply. This isn't simply about losing a partner. It's about losing someone I truly believed was like a sister to me. Mara and I first crossed paths in 2019 at some casual house gathering. We were both 22, both a little uncomfortable in party settings, both hovering around the food table acting deeply fascinated by the selection of dips and crackers. She cracked a joke about only showing up for the complimentary snacks. I laughed far too loudly, and somehow that led to us swapping contact info. In just a couple of months, we became inseparable. The type of bond where you don't bother texting before dropping by the other's place. The kind where you keep a dedicated drawer of your belongings at their apartment. We shared practically everything. Holidays when neither of us could travel home, tough breakups, career ups and downs, everything. She was there for me when my mother fell seriously ill in 2021, and I had to rush back to support my father for 3 weeks. She actually watered my plants, collected my mail, and forwarded those silly motivational images to me daily. When her grandmother died in 2022, I drove 4 hours to attend the service even though it meant missing work and stretching my budget for fuel. That was the depth of our connection. 6 years of creating what I thought was an unbreakable relationship. Then came Christopher. I met him in January of last year at a casual group outing some acquaintances put together. It wasn't arranged or anything. Just a bunch of us bowling, and he was a cousin of one of the people there, initially visiting from out of state, but deciding to relocate here permanently about 2 months later. We clicked right away. He had that sharp, sarcastic humor I adore, was extremely tight with his relatives, which I found endearing, and showed genuine kindness in ways that seemed uncommon. He'd recall little details I'd mentioned weeks earlier. He'd pick up on my bad moods before I even mentioned them. He meshed well with my circle, and I fit right in with his relatives. His mother actually told me she was thrilled to finally gain a daughter figure since she only had sons, including Christopher. His sisters welcomed me as if I'd always been part of the group. Mara seemed to like him too, or at least that's what I believed. In the usual way a close friend approves of your partner. She'd join us for hangouts. She'd banter with him, she'd tell me privately how fortunate I was. In hindsight, of course, I noticed red flags, but back then I had absolutely no cause for suspicion. Nothing. She never flirted openly with him around me, never dropped odd remarks, never gave any hint she viewed him as more than her closest friend's partner. Her birthday fell on March 15th. She was turning 28 and wanted to host a relaxed house party at her place. Nothing extravagant, perhaps 30 guests, but she invested real effort. She chose a specific theme, curated a playlist, put thought into everything. I helped her prepare that afternoon. We spent around 4 hours hanging decorations, rearranging furniture, and sampling the punch she'd mixed, which was far too potent, but it was her celebration, so it didn't matter. The party itself turned out genuinely enjoyable. Christopher arrived with me naturally, and we were having a great time. Dancing a bit, chatting with others, typical party activities. At one point around 11, I believe I stepped away to use the restroom and then got drawn into a discussion with some of Mara's colleagues I'd met previously. And that chat dragged on for about 20 minutes because one of them was venting about landlord issues and seeking input. When I returned to where I'd last seen Christopher, he wasn't there and neither was Mara. I didn't read anything into it. It was her event. She was likely circulating among guests. He was probably refilling his drink or talking to someone else. I located him perhaps 15 minutes later out on her small balcony, and he appeared completely normal. We remained at the party until around 1 a.m. and then headed to his apartment. An ordinary night. A pleasant one, really. The following day, Christopher acted strange, not blatantly odd, but just distant, subdued. Checking his phone frequently and flipping it face down afterward, which wasn't his usual habit. He'd typically leave its screen up anywhere. I inquired if everything was all right, and he claimed yes, just exhausted. I accepted it because why wouldn't I? 2 days post-party, he phoned me while I was at my place and said we needed to discuss something. His tone sounded unusual, kind of emotionless and detached, in a manner I'd never experienced from him. I asked what the issue was, and he insisted it couldn't be done over the phone and asked if he could come over. Of course I agreed, even though my gut was already twisting because nothing positive ever follows. We need to talk. When he arrived at my apartment, he settled on the couch and avoided eye contact for what felt like forever. Then eventually said someone had shared something with him at the party and he needed me to be truthful. I assured him I would be. About what? And he directly asked if I'd been intimate with Mara's brother, Theodore. I think I actually chuckled because the question was so outlandish. Theodore resides in Portugal. He relocated there in 2020 for a work-related opportunity and has stayed ever since. I've encountered him exactly twice during the 6 years I've known Mara, both occasions when he visited for holidays. The notion that I'd been involved with him was so preposterous I barely knew how to react. I explained to Christopher that Theodore lives on another continent and asked what on earth he meant. And Christopher revealed that Mara had taken him aside at the party and confessed she felt awful, but she couldn't continue deceiving him, and that she had witnessed me with Theodore over Christmas and struggled with what to do, finally deciding he deserved the facts. I simply stared. I pointed out that Theodore hadn't even attended the party, that he hadn't visited the country since Christmas when he was here for roughly 5 days, and that I had spent nearly all of those days with Christopher except when visiting my own relatives. I questioned whether he truly thought I'd been unfaithful with my best friend's brother, someone I hardly know who lives overseas. Christopher replied he wasn't sure what to trust anymore. He said Mara had been tearful when confessing. She was trembling. She appeared sincerely conflicted. She provided him with precise details about when it allegedly occurred, what she witnessed. I was unraveling at that stage. I repeatedly asked for those details, what exactly she claimed, because whatever it was entirely fabricated, and I needed to know what I was refuting. He refused to share specifics, just repeated that she was detailed and persuasive, and why would she invent something like this about her closest friend? That was his main point. Why would Mara fabricate it? What could she gain by ruining our relationship if it weren't true? I suggested perhaps he should ask her that because I had no clue why she'd invent it, but she had. And he was there accusing me of an impossibility, because the supposed partner in this wasn't even in the same hemisphere. He said he required time to process, that he wasn't formally accusing me, he was simply bewildered and pained and unsure what was reality. I urged him to consider the practicality. Theodore was in Portugal. I was with Christopher virtually every day during Christmas. When precisely was this supposed infidelity meant to occur in the brief windows I wasn't in his sight? He departed without a clear response, said he'd reach out later. The following days were torture. I phoned Mara right after Christopher left and she didn't pick up. I messaged asking what exactly she'd told Christopher and why. No reply. I called again, silence. I went to her building and knocked for 10 minutes. Either she wasn't home or pretending not to be. I was descending into madness, attempting to understand why my closest friend would claim I'd been unfaithful when I hadn't, when the alleged person wasn't even accessible. Christopher and I exchanged messages over those days. He kept saying he was attempting to discern the truth. I kept reiterating the truth. I never cheated, Mara was lying, and I didn't know her motive. I suggested he contact Theodore directly for confirmation that Theodore hadn't been anywhere near me. He said he lacked Theodore's details and felt uneasy requesting them from Mara under the circumstances. On the 4th day of this ordeal, I finally reached Mara by phone. She answered and launched into speech before I could utter a word, rambling about how sorry she was and how she knew this was painful for me. But she couldn't allow Christopher to be misled any longer and hoped one day I'd forgive her for revealing the truth despite the pain. I interrupted and told her to drop the performance because we both knew nothing occurred with Theodore, and I demanded to know why she was sabotaging me. She went silent briefly, then her tone shifted, colder. She insisted she saw what she saw and wouldn't let me manipulate her into doubting her sanity. She claimed she caught me and Theodore at Christmas, and the image was seared in her mind, and my denial while portraying her as the deceiver was truly reprehensible. I questioned how she could catch something non-existent, and she said she refused to be gaslighted, and perhaps I should concentrate on repairing things with Christopher rather than assaulting the person brave enough to inform him. She ended the call. I tried redialing 4 times, no answer. By week's end, Christopher informed me we should pause the relationship. He said he couldn't decide whom to trust and needed distance to sort it out. I pleaded with him to speak to Theodore for concrete verification that nothing happened. He said he'd attempt, but his demeanor suggested he'd already decided. The pause turned into a full breakup 3 days later, via text. A text message. After all we'd shared, 14 months of what I believed was a strong partnership, ended with a message saying he couldn't continue with so much doubt and hoped I'd comprehend. I didn't. I still don't. I wept nonstop for 2 days. Barely ate. I endlessly reviewed every moment seeking clues, where this originated, why Mara would act this way, what I'd done to provoke her to ruin my life. Then, precisely 19 days after the party, I spotted it on Instagram. Mara had uploaded a photo of herself with Christopher, his arm around her, caption about discovering joy in surprising places and appreciating those who support you through challenges. She tagged him, tagged the spot. Some downtown eatery I'd never visited. I checked his profile, more images, them together on what appeared to be a trail walk, one from a backyard gathering, all dated within the prior 2 weeks. All while he was supposedly needing space to uncover truth. They were a couple. Publicly, she shared him, he shared her. Comments from her circle calling them adorable. Comments from shared acquaintances treating it as ordinary. I messaged Christopher asking what was happening. He said he and Mara had grown closer while navigating everything and things progressed naturally. He said she related to his pain since she was also grieving a friendship, and they supported each other. He apologized if it pained me, but he had to listen to his feelings. Listen to his feelings. Toward the woman who fabricated my infidelity, who invented a tale involving her own brother to end us, who then positioned herself as his comforter and became his partner in under 3 weeks. I attempted again to explain she lied, that this was orchestrated, that she fabricated the Theodore narrative to take him. He said he didn't want further criticism of Mara and advised me to move forward for my well-being. Then silence, so that's my situation. My former partner is now with my former best friend. My ex-best friend obliterated 6 years of trust by spreading an implausible falsehood that somehow succeeded. And I have no direct means to prove her fabrication since the sole corroborator is Theodore, and I lack his contact. Even if I had it, why involve him in this chaos? I've debated contacting shared friends to share the actual events. Part of me craves everyone knowing the reality. Part fears they'll side against me too. If Christopher didn't trust me, why would others? Myra's always been the charismatic one, the one who effortlessly makes connections, the one adored by all. I'm the reserved type most know via her. In a he said, she said, I know the likely outcome. The hardest part is still not fully comprehending her motive. Was she secretly enamored with Christopher all along? Did she suddenly decide she wanted him and devised a strategy? Did she resent me throughout and I remained blind? 6 years of closeness and I'm questioning if I ever truly knew her. If you've read this far, thank you. I realize it was lengthy, but I had to release it somewhere or I'd burst from containing it. Any guidance or simply encouragement would help immensely right now. Update. Many of you asked questions and shared theories, and truthfully, some spotted patterns I hadn't fully absorbed yet, so I want to provide an update. Because much has unfolded. After posting, I spent roughly 2 days merely surviving. Not dramatically, I managed daily tasks, but my thoughts were trapped replaying events endlessly. Several of you recommended contacting mutual acquaintances and sharing my perspective before Mara could shape the narrative. I knew you were correct, but fear paralyzed me. Genuinely afraid everyone would choose her side and I'd lose not only my partner and closest friend, but my whole social network. But then I recognized it was likely already occurring. I began noticing subtle social media signs. People I viewed as friends liking Mara's posts featuring Christopher. Comments beneath their photos from those aware of our prior relationship. No one checking in on me, as if I'd been edited out of the tale. There's this woman Sydney I've known around 4 years. We met via Mara originally, but gradually developed our own bond. We'd occasionally meet for meals, just us, message about random topics, that sort. I saw her as a genuine friend, not merely a connection through Mara. So I messaged her asking to meet because I desperately needed to confide in someone amid my breakdown. She consented, but her replies felt off. Brief, and she proposed this distant taco spot far from our usual areas, and when I questioned it, she claimed craving tacos. In retrospect, I suspect she avoided being spotted with me, but then I was simply relieved someone would listen. At the meetup, she wore this braced expression like anticipating discomfort. I began recounting the true sequence, and I watched her features shift. She wanted to trust me but clearly wavered. I detailed Theodore's residence in Portugal, The impossible timeline, Mara's avoidance of direct confrontation. Sydney stayed silent a while, then said something that stunned me. She revealed Mara had already spoken to nearly everyone and was circulating a story that I'd been unfaithful for months. Theodore merely the instance she witnessed, and that I'd supposedly admitted to Mara earlier that I wasn't content with Christopher and sought an exit. I had to place my utensil down. I lost my appetite. I asked if she was serious and she confirmed. That's the version Mara shared. I desired out anyway, Theodore the tipping point, and Mara felt guilty about eventually feeling for Christopher but had supported him through the hardship, and it organically developed. The sheer nerve. Not only inventing the brother story across the ocean, but crafting a full backstory portraying me as dissatisfied and plotting escape. She was rewriting our entire history to cast herself as a reluctant participant who simply developed emotions while aiding a wounded man. I asked Sydney if she bought that narrative. She paused excessively before saying she wasn't certain. She noted Mara had been highly persuasive and emotional, and she'd never seen Mara fabricate major things. I countered by asking if she'd ever seen me do so, and she admitted no, but described the messiness and her desire to avoid sides. That stung deeply. I clarified I wasn't demanding allegiance. I was asking her to acknowledge the person who ended up with my partner weeks after sabotaging us might have motive. She admitted considering it, but Mara had preempted it. Apparently assured everyone she regretted the timing and resisted her emotions. But Christopher was devastated, and they connected over mutual grief from losing me differently. Mutual grief from losing me? I did nothing. I was the one slandered, discarded, and now villainized as causing pain that drove them together for consolation, straight into dating. I departed that meal feeling worse. Sydney embraced me, expressed sympathy for my struggle, hoped truth would emerge, but clearly wouldn't advocate for it. She aimed for neutrality, effectively maintaining ties with Mara while distancing me until it faded. Typical. Days later, I did something impulsive. I drove to Mara's building. I know many would advise releasing it and prioritizing self-care, but I craved answers. Needed to confront her directly and hear her rationale. Not via Christopher, not via Sydney, face to face. She opened the door and briefly appeared startled, as if unprepared. But then her expression turned pitying, like she sympathized with my plight. She asked my purpose, and I said I needed to understand why. After all our history, 6 years, why fabricate this? She exhaled dramatically and insisted she hadn't fabricated anything. She knew what she witnessed and regretted it ending my relationship. But she couldn't deceive Christopher to shield me. I demanded specifics, what exactly she claimed to see, since she'd shared details widely. She said entering her guest room at Christmas and seeing me with Theodore sufficed. I reminded her Theodore hadn't stayed at her place that Christmas. He remained with their parents due to their mother's health. She hesitated momentarily before claiming different recollection. I pressed how she could recall differently when it never occurred, and she maintained her stance. I raised the additional claims, me being unhappy, wanting out, supposed confessions. Where did those originate? She said I'd occasionally vented about Christopher, and she'd questioned my commitment. I argued everyone vents about partners sometimes. It doesn't imply infidelity or desire to end things. Her expression signaled she was finished with my inquiries. She said she understood my anger and need for blame, but she wouldn't allow accusations of lying when she courageously told truth. I insisted nothing happened. Theodore wasn't at her place, never with me anywhere. She began shutting the door, suggesting I examine why I cheated instead of targeting those honest with Christopher. I blocked the door momentarily, regrettable, and demanded she admit it. Admit wanting him and fabricating to obtain him. She laughed, called me pathetic and desperate, suggested perhaps Christopher was correct to leave. Door closed. I lingered 5 minutes processing. She never wavered. Either she believes her delusion or she's an exceptional performer. Either way, I gained nothing but reaffirmed she'd never confess. Post-confrontation, I spiraled somewhat, not dangerously, just obsessively. I reviewed old messages and pictures seeking hints of prior feelings for Christopher. Any lingering glance or odd comment, I found none. She'd always been appropriately friendly, supportive. That intensified the pain somehow. No warning signs. Either long-term deception or a trigger shifted her priorities. But what sparked turning from ally to destroyer over a man? Around then, Mara's cousin Livia became more visible peripherally. I'd met her multiple times over years. At family events, larger parties, a few years younger, always eager for inclusion. Not bothersome, just enthusiastic. She'd been cordial, occasionally liked my posts. Suddenly she appeared frequently in Mara and Christopher's content. Backgrounds, heart comments, stories of group hangs. It hurt witnessing everyone adapt to this new dynamic where they were a pair, and I the alleged cheater responsible. One evening in low spirits, I went out with Kenzie, an old acquaintance unlinked to the drama, to a former college bar for drinks and temporary escape. There perhaps 2 hours when Kenzie excused herself, leaving me at the bar scrolling. A man approached chatting. I politely deflected when someone behind said my name. Livia, visibly intoxicated, unsteady, with mixed excited nervous vibe. She shooed the guy, sat, and I initially wanted to exit any Mara link. But she grasped my arm, said wait, she wanted to speak. I asked about what she said. She felt terrible about the situation and knew it was wrong. I probed what she meant by wrong. She referenced the whole me-Christopher-Mara fallout, how it unfolded. I asked her view of how. She eyed me, gauging disclosure. Then dropped that Mara had been scheming this. She felt uneasy initially but doubted it'd succeed. Scheming this. I pressed for meaning. She began answering, but Kenzie returned. Livia clammed up, claimed she had to locate friends. I tried pressing, but she retreated, saying she spoke too much while drunk and shouldn't have. I obsessed the rest of night. Scheming. Mara premeditated, not spontaneous party lie. Deliberate. She intentionally aimed to dismantle my relationship for him. Kenzie was stunned, repeating, "Oh my God." We left soon as I couldn't concentrate, that night sleepless. Mind racing, piecing timeline. When plan began, who else aware? That her cousin knew and felt off meant not solo impulse. Discussed, strategized. Implemented. I messaged Sydney next morning about Livia's words. Sydney questioned certainty, Livia's intoxication, possible mishearing. I affirmed hearing, planned to steal my boyfriend clearly. Sydney silent hours. Eventually said unsure how to process. Livia known for drama, perhaps exaggerating or stirring due to alcohol. I asked if she'd invent such, and she said uncertain, but unwilling to accuse Mara gravely on drunk cousin remark. So even with confirmation of planning, doubt lingered. Mara retained her flawless reputation. I knew next step. Sober conversation with Livia. Details of her knowledge, plan specifics, undeniable confirmation beyond bar ramble. I DM'd Livia on Instagram. Neutral. Hey, bar comment needs discussion. Meet. She read, ignored nearly 2 days, then replied poor idea. Drunk, overshared, didn't want involvement. I said she was involved by knowing and silent. She said not her role, sorry, can't assist. I nearly surrendered when she messaged later. Guilty, eating at her, but feared Mara's reaction. Mara harsh when angered, avoid family conflict. I begged one meeting, share what known. Even if never again, I needed truth to cease feeling insane. No reply that night. Morning, okay once, promise no telling Mara, I agreed. Parked near her place Saturday afternoon, that's current status. Meeting scheduled with Livia this weekend. Terrified she'll cancel or arrive silent. But also first hope since onset. If Mara truly orchestrated, if proof exists, finally way to validate my innocence. Some advise detach, forget them. Understandable, truly, but can't allow Mara impunity. She took my partner, damaged my reputation, alienated friends via premeditated falsehood. If Livia details plan, must hear. We'll update post-Saturday. Send positive energy, prayers, whatever. Need Livia to appear and disclose truth. After weeks powerless and doubting sanity, perhaps sole opportunity for proof. Final update. Saturday occurred, much to share. Likely last update. Exhausted, finally some closure, though not ideal originally. Livia appeared. Genuinely surprised, I expected no-show all morning. But there on park bench, anxious. Reaffirmed promise secrecy, Mara. I agreed, though indifferent to Mara's opinion. She spoke, worse than anticipated. Mara interested in Christopher since early meetings, months into our dating. Never to me but confided in Livia. How he matched her ideal. Unfair I found him. I always landed the best. I asked about always. Livia uncomfortable, prior brief boyfriend 4 years back Mara also fancied. But ended naturally, no action needed. This time serious. Mara couldn't bear our happiness. Plan formed January. Vented to Livia inability to stop thoughts. Wrong but believed we'd mismatch. She'd treat him better. Livia initially saw as harmless complaining. Then Mara discussed action. Theodore chosen deliberately distant, hard to refute. Claim Christmas sighting, word versus word. Confident Christopher trust her. Why lie as best friend? Planned party execution. Alcohol, heightened emotions, believable delayed confession. Livia showed texts. Phone screenshots January, March. Mara outlining scheme, seeking Livia input on approach. Mara stating intent tell Christopher catch with Theodore, then comfort post breakup. I read feeling physically ill. Deep nausea seeing best friend, casually text plot to ruin my life like event planning. One message crushed. Week pre-birthday. Nervous but excited, Christopher need process time, she'd patiently wait him approach. Literally, he'll need support, I'll be there. I asked why no warning. Livia thought mere talk, not execution. Post-event, feared involvement, Myra family, avoid conflict. Wanted anger but mostly gratitude for truth. She allowed screenshots, all messages. Then asked my intentions. Considered sending Christopher, expose Mara, but realized no desire for return. Man believing baseless tale sans verification, text breakup. Dating saboteur weeks later, didn't want him, let Mara keep. They suit, but his family deserved truth. Mom who saw me daughter-like, sisters who embraced me. They needed no incoming person's character. Created group chat. Added mom, sisters Felicia and Viola, retained numbers from past surprises. Excluded Christopher. Sent all screenshots, explanation. Myra invented Theodore tale for breakup. Planned months. Proof from cousin. Phone off 6 hours, couldn't bear awaiting replies. Later, many messages. Felicia first, shocked emojis, questions. Viola noted always sensed off about rapid move on. Mom, lengthy, horrified, disgusted, welcomed Myra as family while scheming. Best, told Christopher directly never accept scheming girl as daughter-in-law. Myra unwelcome family meals. Couldn't believe his gullibility. Christopher messaged evening. First contact since. Why involve family, no right? I said full right defend against falsehoods if verified Mara's claims avoidable. Tried defend, confusing, hurt Mara convincing. Said irrelevant now. His choice consequences, girlfriend family loathes, mom views him fool. Sisters forever see screenshots in Mara. Asked in person talk I refused, nothing left. Chose lie over me, liar as partner, permanent. From Felicia, Mara attempted recent family dinner, mom requested leave. Publicly, Christopher argued mom firm. Refused share meal with manipulator who harmed innocent for gain. Mara, Christopher still together known. But she's essentially barred family. Mom ignores, sisters silent. Events awkward, Myra skips or attends, cold-shouldered, unsure longevity, part hopes endurance, let them stay. Christopher lifetime with despised woman, perpetual doubt her honesty. Myra her prize relationship. Minus dreamed family approval. That's all. Conclusion, sometimes justice delays but arrives precisely where painful.